One anonymous email. That's all it took to unravel 15 years of marriage, love, and everything I thought I knew about my wife. What I discovered behind that motel door. I'll never forget. The last few hours of my life have been something I wouldn't wish on anyone, just absolute, soul-scorching disbelief. I'm David Jenkins, and today broke me in a way I didn't even know was possible. It started with an anonymous email, just a few lines that tore my world apart. It claimed my wife, Lauren, my partner for 6 years, the woman I built a life with, had been seen entering a cheap motel last Wednesday afternoon. Not alone. With a man. The same man apparently she was now casually having lunch with. Reading those words, my hands started to shake. I've faced tough situations before, job pressure, money worries, family stuff, but this hit a part of me I didn't even know was exposed. Lauren and I weren't just married, we were in love. Or, at least I thought we were. We were still close, still intimate, making love several times a week. And not out of obligation, it felt real. Passionate. I mean, I'm not even 30 yet, and I truly believed we had something special. Something lasting. But after that email, I couldn't unsee the words. I couldn't pretend everything was fine. My chest felt like it was caving in. That whole afternoon I was barely functioning. Just walking through fog. I made it through work somehow, and around 6 I drove home like I always do. Only this time nothing felt familiar anymore. Her car was already in the driveway. Business as usual. I stepped into the kitchen and there she was. Lauren. Rinsing off vegetables at the sink, looking calm, normal. Still in her work clothes. She turned, smiled, wiped her hands on a towel, and gave me a kiss like she hadn't just spent a day with someone else. Hi, sweetheart. How was your day? I sat down slowly, put my briefcase on the floor, and tried to swallow the knot in my throat. Not bad, I said, trying to sound steady. You? She looked a little tired but relaxed. Good, but there's some bad news. That project I've been working on, it's kind of blown up. I'll need to head to Greensboro on Friday. Won't be home till about 8 or so, depending on how things go. That was it. That was the crack I needed. Her Fridays were always flexible. I knew her schedule inside and out. And now she had a perfectly timed excuse to be out until late. Just like last Wednesday. I smiled and nodded like I believed her. That's rough. At least you don't have to stay overnight, though. She nodded. Exactly. And hey, we'll still have the whole weekend together. She even tried to be thoughtful, saying, since I won't know exactly when I'll be home, could you call me when you're heading back? I'll try to have dinner ready. A month ago I would have taken that as sweet. Thoughtful. But now I was wondering if she was just buying herself a 2-hour window to clean up after a rendezvous. Wipe away the scent of someone else. Sure, I said, keeping my voice even. I'll call when I leave. I'll let you know what time I'll be home. The plan was set. I wasn't going to Greensboro. I was taking the day off, but not for rest. No. I'd be parked outside that same motel. I needed to know the truth no matter how much it hurt. If she was lying, if that email was real, I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed to break the illusion I was still living in. She turned back to the sink. I'm gonna finish dinner and hop in the shower. Can you keep an eye on this pan for me? I nodded again, my stomach churning. Yeah, sure. I've got it. I didn't say it out loud, but the thought hit me hard. If she was really doing what I feared, how long had I been the only one trying to protect this marriage? I'm back, Lauren called out, slipping off her shoes and grabbing her purse as she headed upstairs. Of course, honey. No worries, I replied, keeping my voice level, though my thoughts were anything but calm. That purse, that's what stuck out. Normally she'd leave it downstairs, toss it on the counter like always. But today she took it straight up with her. Something about that small change made my skin crawl. Then there was the shower. Sure, she'd take one in the evenings now and then, but not typically right after walking through the door. That was new. Was it just routine, or was she trying to rinse away evidence? While stirring the vegetables and flipping through the day's mail, my mind refused to quiet. That email from earlier still played like a broken record in my head. Was this sudden shower a coincidence, or was it connected? At dinner, I couldn't mask the cloud hanging over me. I must have seemed miles away. Are you okay, babe? Lauren asked between bites. Is something wrong besides the project stuff you mentioned earlier? You seem really quiet tonight. Like, not even here. Her concern felt genuine. Too genuine. But I couldn't let on. Sorry, I said, forcing a soft smile. I guess I'm just tired. My mind's already racing through everything I need to get done before Friday's meeting in Greensboro. She nodded, seemingly satisfied. I stuck to the plan. Don't give her a reason to think I'm onto anything. Funny how normal looks now, I thought to myself. I was either about to uncover the worst betrayal of my life, or spiral into madness over a prank email sent by some cruel stranger. What if it was all a misunderstanding? What if it wasn't even her, just someone who looked like her? Could I really throw everything into chaos based on a few lines of anonymous text? Yesterday I was sure of everything. I had faith in my marriage, in my wife. Today I'm a bundle of nerves and suspicion. After dinner we cleaned up, watched a little TV, even made loose plans for the weekend. The motions were familiar but nothing felt real. I told Lauren I needed to turn in early, said I had a lot to prep in the morning before heading out of town. That was true in a way, just not the way she thought. Lying there in bed, the silence felt heavier than usual. I couldn't stop the thoughts from spinning. What if she snuck away tonight? What if the guy from the motel was just waiting for my back to be turned? My stomach knotted up tighter. I tried to look back, piece together if Wednesdays had meant anything different lately. It wasn't consistent. Maybe half the time she'd shower after work. That didn't help. That only made me feel more lost. She got into bed first. I followed a few minutes later, trying to still the tension in my body. Then, out of nowhere, she slipped behind me, wrapping her arms around my torso, nails gently scratching across my chest. She whispered, her voice low and playful. Think I could distract you from work for, say, 30 minutes? The warmth of her breath on my neck should have felt comforting. Instead, it made my skin itch with conflict. The woman I loved, who might be lying to me right now, was curled up behind me like nothing had changed. How much more of this could I take before I snapped? I kept calm. I stuck to my script. As much as I'd love to, sweetheart, tonight and tomorrow, I'm just not gonna be much good to you, I said softly. This project's got my mind tied up in knots. Even as the words left my mouth, I couldn't believe how much had changed in a single day. That email had taken 60 seconds to read, barely a paragraph, and now here I was, a different man living in a shadow of doubt. She sighed gently behind me, not pressing the issue. It's okay, babe. I get it, she said, running her fingers along my chest. I just thought, if you were up for it. I just wanted to offer you a little stress relief, Lauren whispered the night before, her arms wrapped snugly around me, her lips pressing a gentle kiss to the back of my head. She wished me good night and rolled over, drifting off like she hadn't a care in the world. Meh. I laid there staring at the ceiling, a mess of confusion and unease. What did she mean by, if you're up for it? Was that just affection, or something more layered? A guilty conscience looking for redemption? I didn't have the courage to dig into it. The next morning I slipped out of bed before she even stirred. No drawn-out goodbye, no lingering hug. Just silence and the creak of the front door closing behind me. I wasn't ready to look her in the eyes, not today. I knew I wasn't handling this well. Whether the email was the truth or some cruel joke, my reaction was spiraling. Last night felt like I was living inside the telltale heart. Every beat of guilt or suspicion echoed louder in my chest, and the more she smiled, the more I felt like something was buried beneath us. I couldn't do another night like that. So around noon I left her a voicemail. Hey sweetheart. Just letting you know I'm gonna stay late at work tonight. Need to finish some things for tomorrow's trip. Don't worry about dinner. I'll probably see you before bed. Of course none of that was true. Thursday wasn't spent prepping for any meeting. I'm a planner by nature, it's part of what I do for a living. But this wasn't a spreadsheet or a quarterly review I was prepping for. This was a breakdown. A quiet unraveling of a life I thought was rock solid. Still, I was methodical. I did my research. I sifted through blog posts, legal forums, and articles from people who had been right here, teetering on the edge of trust and devastation. There are entire corners of the internet filled with tips on catching a cheating spouse, and just as many on how to hide an affair. That contrast made my stomach turn. I wasn't ready for any of it, but I kept reading. That evening when I finally made it home, Lauren greeted me with the same kind of warmth she always did. Hugs. Casual smiles. Not a single crack in her voice or shift in her eyes. It was as if nothing had changed. For her, maybe it hadn't. But for me, I was a shell of who I'd been just 2 days ago. I barely touched dinner. Made up some story about being too full from lunch. I couldn't eat. I couldn't speak. I was bracing myself for what I had decided I had to do Friday. And Friday, well, it came. Cold and clear. I didn't go into the office. I went to the motel. It wasn't some high-end spot. Just one of those roadside motels with dated signage and peeling trim. The kind of place where no one asks too many questions. I sat in my car, parked across the street, pretending to be just another commuter waiting out a coffee break. There wasn't much activity. I waited. And then a silver Acura pulled in. Newer model. The guy who stepped out looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. I watched as he walked into the office, got a key, and headed to a room on the first floor. Something about his posture, his face, it nagged at me. Like a ghost from a party we once attended. But I wasn't here for him. 5 minutes passed. And then she pulled in. Lauren's blue Honda eased into the lot like it had done 1,000 times before. Only this time she wasn't coming home to me. She parked right beside the Acura. Stepped out with her purse in hand. Not a glance over her shoulder. Not a shred of hesitation. She walked up to the same door. Knocked twice. And waited. When it opened, she slipped inside without even looking back. That sound, the door clicking shut, felt like a gunshot in my chest. So this was it. This was the truth. The gut feeling that had been clawing at me for days was no longer just a whisper. It was fact. It was the final nail in the coffin of whatever we used to be. I sat in my car numb. Watching the room where my wife, was now with another man. The woman I trusted more than anyone. And all I could think was, perfect. Just perfect. Somewhere in the haze of disbelief and heartbreak, instinct took over. Before pulling away from the motel, I snapped a few quick photos. Lauren's Honda parked right beside the Acura. I made sure to get a clear shot of the license plate too. It felt like something out of a bad movie, but I needed proof. Something solid, something undeniable. Not just for the future, but maybe for myself, to remind me I wasn't losing my mind. I turned the wheel, eased onto the main road, and drove. No destination, no plan, just away. The world blurred around me. I almost blew through a red light, slamming on the brakes just in time to avoid what could have been a nasty accident. My heart pounded against my ribs. That moment jolted me awake, just enough to pull over into a nearby brewery I'd passed 100 times but never gone into. Inside, I sat at the bar and ordered a beer. Just one. I wasn't trying to drown the pain, just take the edge off, get my head on straight. Everything felt surreal, like I'd been dropped into someone else's life. As I sipped, a plan began to form in my mind. I needed confirmation. I needed to make absolutely sure there was something physical, something I could take with me when I left the house. A final detail to make it real. Once I had that, I could leave, give myself a few days to breathe, to sort through this wreckage in private. I couldn't face her yet, not without clarity. Not like this. That's when another thought hit me, something sharp and strategic. Lauren thought I wouldn't be home until later tonight. What if I called her now? What if I threw her off balance, caught her mid-lie, mid-deception? I paid the bill, climbed back into my car, and called her. She didn't answer. But I imagined it, her phone lighting up. My name flashing across the screen. Her hand freezing mid-motion. Her eyes going wide. And I wasn't far off. Back in that room, I could almost hear the moment I disrupted their little bubble. She must have muttered something. Maybe panic, maybe profanity. He just called. He says he's on his way back and will be home around 6. Hey, at least you got a heads up, the man, Rob, apparently joked. Like it was a game. Like I was just a minor inconvenience. I could barely stomach the thought. Lauren must have scrambled, pulling herself together with that same mechanical grace she used to plan dinner parties or close deals. She kissed him goodbye, my wife kissing someone else like that was normal, and rushed off to the bathroom for a quick rinse. Wipe away the evidence. Reset the illusion. Rob dressed quickly and slipped out. And I waited. I got home before 6 and sat in the living room, the photos still burning a hole in my pocket. I didn't pace. I didn't fume. I just waited, still as stone, preparing for a performance I didn't want to give. The front door creaked open not long after. Hi, honey. Lauren called out, all sunshine and sweetness, like nothing had happened. Her eyes lit up when she saw me standing there, rising from the chair like I had all the time in the world. You're home early. Everything wrapped up quicker than I thought, I said, smiling just enough to keep her guard down. She walked over and wrapped her arms around me, pressing a kiss to my cheek. Why don't we go out and celebrate? Just the two of us. Sure, I replied smoothly. That sounds perfect. Why don't you head upstairs and change? I'll find a place and make a reservation. Great, she chirped, tossing her work bag and purse onto the table before disappearing upstairs. As I watched her go, a knot twisted in my gut. It was all fake, every word, every touch, every smile. I had the truth now and I couldn't pretend anymore. I took out a pen and the notepad from the kitchen drawer. I wasn't ready to scream. I wasn't ready to fight. But I had to speak somehow. I had to reclaim my voice. When she came back down, the note would be waiting on the table, scrawled in my handwriting, shaky but firm. Lauren, I know everything. Seeing you walk into that motel today broke something in me I'm not sure can ever be repaired. I don't know what hurts more, the betrayal or the fact that you could smile at me tonight like nothing happened. This isn't goodbye. Not yet. But I can't be around you right now. I need time, real time, to figure out what this means for me, for us, if there even is an us anymore. Please don't try to call. Don't try to find me. When I'm ready, I'll reach out and we'll talk. Until then, let me breathe. David, I didn't go home. I couldn't. Instead, I checked into a hotel a few towns over, someplace quiet, sterile. Just walls and a bed, which felt about right considering the state of my marriage. Dinner was downstairs, something bland I barely touched. I nursed a double scotch on the rocks, the ice melting slower than I was unraveling. Eventually, I forced myself back up to the room. And there, in that dimly lit space where no one knew who I was or what I just lost, I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The recording. The one I'd set up weeks ago when suspicion first crept in like a thief. I didn't expect to hear what I heard. I thought it might be brief, awkward, or damning in some cinematic way. But what I got instead was worse. It was ordinary. Normal. That was the part that broke me all over again. The way she laughed, the way he spoke softly. It wasn't fiery passion or some irresistible force. It was routine. Mechanical. Like they'd done this before. Because they had. 5 times, I now knew. And yet I still didn't understand why. I listened through all 90 minutes. Every muted whisper, every lie given life through touch. I was numb by the end of it, no tears, no yelling. Just a hollowness that settled somewhere deep in my chest. The next evening, Friday, I finally agreed to see her. Lauren sat across from me, her eyes already red before I said a word. I know about Rob, I said calmly. Too calmly. She nodded, the tears pushing through now. David, I need to explain. It's not what it looks like. I mean it is, but it's not about what you think. I kept my face still. Then explain. She seemed rehearsed. Not cold, just businesslike. Like she was delivering bad news to a client. Rob and I, we were trying to prove something. At work. Our colleagues said it was impossible to hide an affair without someone catching on. We didn't believe that. So we planned it out. Strategized everything. And then we tested it. I blinked. What? Lauren's voice was steady but pleading. We agreed, it meant nothing. It wasn't about emotions. I never stopped loving you. Rob loves his wife. This wasn't cheating. It was controlled. A kind of experiment. I stared at her like she was speaking another language. You slept with him. 5 times. Yes, she whispered, her voice cracking now. But it wasn't about passion or desire. It was about staying invisible. The challenge. Challenge? I asked louder now. You challenged yourselves to lie? To deceive the people you supposedly love? You really think that's something you can just file under meaningless? Lauren's posture sank and the strength in her voice finally gave out. I know how it sounds, but it wasn't like that. We avoided passion on purpose. We didn't touch outside of the act. We didn't kiss like this was love. Because it wasn't. My hands were shaking under the table. I clenched them into fists. So, what? I asked. You needed to prove you could pull it off? Why didn't you prove it with a board game? Or by sneaking out for coffee? Why did you actually have sex? She was silent. I pressed again. Why did you choose that? Out of all the ways to test your theory, you picked the one thing that shatters trust beyond repair. She finally looked me in the eye. Because it was the one thing we knew would matter most. If we could hide that, we could hide anything. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. My voice was quieter now, almost too calm. And that's the part you still don't get, Lauren? The fact that you had to hide it at all, that's what makes it matter. She reached for my arm but I stepped back. You didn't just test trust, Lauren. You destroyed it. I don't know, David. I never really thought about that part of it, Lauren said, her voice quieter now, her confidence fading. The secrecy, it was just built into the plan. We made this idea of a fake affair and at some point we stopped asking why. We just moved forward like it was understood. We'd take it all the way. I stared at her for a long moment. All day today, I said, my voice steady but thick with disappointment, you've used that word just. Like you're trying to shrink what happened. Just a plan. Just physical. Just once, just 5 times. You use it like it makes this smaller than it is. But it doesn't, Lauren. I saw the emotion flicker behind her eyes. Whether it was guilt or realization I couldn't tell. What you did, I continued, wasn't just anything. It was devastating. You shattered something sacred and you keep talking about it like it's a project you mismanaged at work. She didn't reply. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she knew I was right. That night, we ended the conversation in exhausted silence. But she agreed to meet again the next day. Maybe she hoped she could change the outcome. Maybe I did too deep down. But hope, for me, was fading fast. The next morning we sat down again. I had a stack of papers waiting on the table between us. Lauren's eyes scanned them with growing confusion. "What's this?" "Divorce," I said plainly. "I had them drawn up last night." She didn't say a word. Just stared at the forms, her mouth slightly open, her breathing uneven. "You know, I've spent a long time believing I was the one for her. That I was enough. We shared everything, meals, trips, long nights talking about the future. She told me she loved me with a certainty that once made me feel invincible. But at some point, something shifted. This whole mess reminded me of another couple we used to talk about, friends of hers. At one point, it felt like that guy's love life took up more of our conversations than our own relationship. I remember telling her once, gently, that I didn't really want to talk about him anymore. That it made me uncomfortable. She didn't take it well. Got defensive. Said he was her best friend and she needed to talk about it. But looking back now, it wasn't just about friendship. It was something else, jealousy maybe. Control. A fear of not being the center of attention anymore. As their wedding approached, she spent more and more time with them, planning, helping, staying out later than usual. And I saw less and less of her. I chalked it up to loyalty, to her wanting to be a good friend. But now I see how I excused things that didn't sit right with me. I was working 8, sometimes 10 hours a day. I'd bring work home, try to keep our life stable. And all the while, something was shifting behind my back. Then came that Saturday. I got a message from her friend saying she'd left a pair of sunglasses at our place. I said she could have just let us know. Lauren could have dropped them off. But that's when she told me my wife wasn't at her place. And they didn't know where she was. I asked about the fiancé. He was supposedly at work, but I'd known him for years. That man didn't work weekends and he sure didn't volunteer for overtime. Something clicked then. Something ugly. Eventually the truth came out, some twisted echo of what Lauren had done with Rob. My wife and her friend had decided to test a connection before he got married. Just to see if there was anything there. 15 years married and she still needed to test something with someone else? That's when I knew. It was over. Lauren looked up from the papers, her face pale and drawn. "You're really doing this?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "I don't see another way," I said. "You didn't just cheat. You built a whole system to justify it. You brought it into our home, into our marriage, and you expect me to see it as harmless." She shook her head. "No. I don't expect anything. I just hoped, maybe you could see that I still love you." I looked at her for a long time before responding. "I loved you too," I said softly. "But now I need to love myself more. I don't want my kids to grow up hating their mother." That thought sticks with me more than almost anything else. As much as she's hurt me, as deep as the betrayal cut, I don't want them carrying that weight, that bitterness. They deserve better than that. So I've tried to swallow my pride when it counts. I've tried to be composed, level-headed, even when everything inside me is screaming. But I won't lie, it's hard. It's really hard. After everything fell apart, she tried to date Rob. Yeah, that Rob. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of misplaced hope, I don't know. But it didn't last. They realized pretty quickly that whatever they had wasn't anything close to real. They tried to pass it off as a platonic connection, some noble, harmless thing, but it was just the ashes of something they should have never lit in the first place. I think back to how Lauren always used to talk about her best friend's fiancé. She never liked the guy, never had anything kind to say. Looking at it now, it's hard not to see it for what it probably was, jealousy. The moment her friend chose someone else to focus on, Lauren suddenly realized she had feelings. She just couldn't let him be happy without her in the picture. It was like happiness, anyone's happiness, felt like something she had to be a part of, even if it meant tearing something down. Divorce after all this time? It's like learning to walk again after forgetting what solid ground feels like. But I'm trying. I'm doing my best to move forward with some grace, even if I'm still stumbling. It reminds me of another chapter in my life. Before Lauren, before the wreckage. I had someone I loved. We were young, fresh out of college. We moved in together, started our lives from scratch. New city, new jobs. We made it work. We thrived for a while. 4 years in, she sat me down and told me she thought she might be bisexual. She was nervous about it, bracing for some kind of backlash. But I didn't give her one. I told her I supported her. That if she ever needed to talk, I was there. When she told her family and they didn't take it well, I held her hand and helped her stand through it. Over time they came around. And I thought we did too. Then one day she told me she needed space. Nothing was wrong, she said, just felt off, like something inside her wasn't settled. So she went to stay with her parents for a few days and I stayed home. I respected her request. I didn't text, didn't call. I just waited like she asked. When she came back, she was smiling again. Seemed lighter. I was just glad to have her home. But when I told my mom about it, she didn't take it the same way. She needed space out of nowhere? She asked, her voice quiet but heavy with something I didn't want to hear. That sounds like how your father acted back when he was cheating? I immediately shut her down. No way. Not her. She'd never do that. Our relationship had always been strong. We were open, loving, always there for each other. I couldn't imagine her lying to me. Not her. But now I don't know. I still don't want to believe she cheated. And maybe she didn't. But what I've learned, what Lauren taught me, is that sometimes the people closest to us carry secrets in their back pockets, smiling while they lie right to our faces. Sometimes love blinds us so completely that we miss what's right in front of us. And sometimes, even when you see the truth, you still don't know how to let go. I remember the exact moment the doubt became too much to bear. I stepped out of the room, heart thudding in my chest, and picked up her phone. I wasn't proud of it. I never wanted to be the kind of person who snoops. But when trust is dying, silence becomes suspicion, and I needed to know. I had to know. I unlocked it, hands shaking, and went straight for the folders. And there it was. The dating app. She hadn't even tried to hide it, not really. Tucked inside a random folder like it was just another productivity tool. I opened it, hoping, praying, that maybe she hadn't used it. Maybe it was just leftover from some past version of herself she forgot to delete. But no. There were matches. Dozens. She'd been talking to other women. And look, I'm not some close-minded fool. Her sexuality didn't bother me. She told me a while back that she might be bisexual. I supported her. I listened. I stood by her when her family turned their backs on her. None of that ever changed how I felt about her. But this wasn't self-discovery. This was betrayal. One message in particular stood out, too familiar, too flirtatious, too intimate for it to be anything but cheating. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt like I was floating outside my body, reading words I was never supposed to see, watching the person I loved become someone I didn't recognize. The very next day, she told me she was heading to her parents' place again. She said she agreed with me, that she hadn't been herself lately, that a little time apart might do her some good. I just nodded, told her it sounded like a good idea. And when she left, I followed. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping to find. Closure? Clarity? Maybe even a glimmer of hope that I was wrong. But I wasn't. She didn't go to her parents' house. She went to a motel. I sat in my car for a few minutes before I could even move. I didn't want to believe it, not really, but I had to see it through. I walked in, made it to the hallway just in time to see them together. Her and another man. Whatever they were doing, it didn't matter anymore. I stepped forward, looked them both in the eyes, and told them we knew everything. I wasn't loud. I didn't yell. I just ended it. Right there. I want you out of the apartment, I said. My voice was steady, even though everything inside me was breaking. The other guy turned to the woman he was with. I want you out of my house, he said. And I want the ring back. That part shocked me. I didn't know they were engaged. As I turned to leave, the weight of it all crashed over me. Everything I'd built, everything I'd believed about us, it was gone. Just like that. She ran after me, sobbing, apologizing, begging me to listen. But I couldn't. I just couldn't understand why she hadn't talked to me. Why she kept it all bottled up, why she made these decisions in silence while I stood there thinking we were in love. Throughout our relationship, I'd gone out of my way to be there for her. To make her feel seen. Heard. Safe. I'd been her anchor. But when it came time for her to anchor us, she let go.